Our world, in all its complexity and diversity, is not a recent creation. It has been shaped, layer upon layer, by the rise and fall of great civilizations. I invite you to join me on a remarkable journey, a voyage through time to witness the most influential empires that have left their indelible mark upon the human story. We will traverse continents and millennia, exploring the forces that drove these colossal powers to greatness and, in time, to their inevitable decline. This is the story of ambition, innovation, and conflict on a planetary scale. We shall begin our expedition in the cradle of civilization, where the first great empires emerged from the fertile river valleys, and proceed in a chronological odyssey. From the sun-scorched sands of ancient Egypt to the mist-shrouded Andes of the Inca, from the sprawling plains of Asia to the heart of Europe, we will observe each empire in its own time. We will see how each built upon the last, creating a continuous thread of human achievement that connects our modern world directly to the distant past. Prepare to witness the construction of wonders, the birth of ideas that still govern our lives, and the epic struggles that defined entire epochs. This is more than just a history lesson. It is an exploration of the very essence of human society, our capacity for extraordinary creation and, at times, immense destruction. Let us discover together how these epic empires forged the world we inhabit today, in all its splendor and its challenges. Our journey begins here, along the banks of a single, life-giving river, the Nile. For 3 millennia, its predictable floods laid down a ribbon of fertile black soil in the midst of an unforgiving desert. It was in this sanctuary that one of the world's first and most enduring empires took root. The Egyptian Empire, ruled by god-kings known as pharaohs, was a civilization of profound stability and astonishing ambition. They saw their world as a reflection of a divine order, an eternal cycle of life, death, and rebirth, mirrored in the rising and falling of the river itself. Their achievements, born from this unique worldview, were monumental in every sense. In their quest for eternity, they developed sophisticated mathematics to plot the stars and measure the land. This knowledge allowed them to construct the pyramids, colossal tombs aligned with celestial precision, designed to guide the pharaoh's soul to the afterlife. These structures were not just feats of engineering, they were powerful statements of belief, testaments to a society that could organize and command the labor of tens of thousands, all united in a single sacred purpose. Beyond their stone monuments, the Egyptians made remarkable advances in other fields. Their physicians documented illnesses and developed surgical procedures, creating some of the earliest medical texts. They invented a complex system of hieroglyphic writing to record their history, their religion, and the mundane details of administration. The legacy of the pharaohs is not merely in the treasures they left behind, but in the creation of a complex, state-level society that would serve as a blueprint for millennia to come. To the east, in a fertile crescent of land nourished by the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, another great crucible of civilization was forming. This was Mesopotamia, the land between 2 rivers. Unlike the unified kingdom of Egypt, this region was a dynamic, often volatile landscape of competing city-states and successive empires: the Sumerians, Akkadians, Babylonians, and Assyrians. It was here, amidst this constant flux, that some of humanity's most fundamental innovations were born out of sheer necessity and competitive drive. The challenge of managing complex urban societies and burgeoning trade networks led to a remarkable invention: writing. Cuneiform, a script of wedge-shaped marks pressed into wet clay, is among the world's oldest. It was a tool of immense power, used not only to record harvests and trade deals, but also to codify laws. The Code of Hammurabi, inscribed on a towering stone stele, stands as a landmark achievement, an attempt to create a society governed by written, impartial justice rather than the whims of a ruler. It was the birth of law as we know it. This was the land where the city itself became a human masterpiece. Great urban centers like Ur and Babylon, with their towering ziggurats and fortified walls, were hubs of commerce, religion, and astronomical observation. Mesopotamian astronomers meticulously charted the heavens, developing the precursors to modern astrology and astronomy, dividing time into the units we still use today. Their legacy is profound. They gave us the city, the rule of law, and the first written stories, laying the very foundations of urban life. From the Persian plateau, a new power arose, one that would achieve a scale of dominion previously unimaginable. The Achaemenid Empire, founded by Cyrus the Great, was the world's first true superpower. At its zenith, it stretched from the Indus Valley in the east to the shores of Greece in the west, encompassing a staggering diversity of peoples, cultures, and religions. The Persians' success was not solely due to their military might, though their armies were formidable. Their true genius lay in the art of governance. Cyrus and his successors, notably Darius the Great, understood that an empire of this magnitude could not be ruled by brute force alone. They pioneered a system of remarkable tolerance for the time. Conquered peoples were largely allowed to retain their local customs, languages, and religious beliefs. This policy fostered a sense of stability and loyalty across their vast domain, turning former enemies into subjects who had a stake in the empire's success. It was a revolutionary approach to imperial administration. To bind this sprawling territory together, the Persians engineered one of the ancient world's greatest logistical achievements, the Royal Road. This highway, complete with relay stations and fresh horses, stretched for over 1,600 miles, allowing messengers to traverse the empire in a matter of days. This, combined with a standardized currency and a sophisticated system of regional governors or satraps, created a connected and efficient empire that facilitated trade and communication on an unprecedented scale, setting a new standard for what an empire could be. On the rocky peninsulas and scattered islands of the Aegean Sea, a different kind of power was taking shape. Ancient Greece was not a single unified empire in the traditional sense, but a collection of fiercely independent city-states, most notably Athens and Sparta. Yet their influence on the world would be as profound as any military conquest. Here, in the bustling agora of Athens, a radical new idea was born: democracy, or rule by the people. It was a fragile and limited experiment, but one that would echo through the ages. This was a civilization obsessed with questions. Philosophers like Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle challenged conventional wisdom, seeking to understand the nature of existence, ethics, and politics through logic and reason. Their inquiries laid the groundwork for all of Western philosophy and scientific thought. In theater, they explored the depths of the human condition, while their art and architecture pursued an ideal of balance, harmony, and perfection that still defines our standards of beauty. The Greeks did not seek to rule the world with armies, but with ideas. That changed with the arrival of a single, brilliant individual, Alexander the Great. The young king of Macedon, a student of Aristotle, unleashed a whirlwind of conquest that shattered the Persian Empire and carried Greek culture, or Hellenism, as far as India. His empire was short-lived, breaking apart soon after his death, but its impact was permanent. By blending Greek culture with the traditions of the East, Alexander created a new cosmopolitan world, spreading the language, art, and ideas of the Greeks across a vast swath of the globe, forever changing the course of history. All roads, it is said, lead to Rome. And for centuries, this was almost literally true. From a modest city-state on the Italian peninsula, Rome grew into the most dominant empire the Western world has ever known. Its story is one of relentless, methodical expansion, driven by its legendary legions, the most disciplined and effective fighting force of their time. The Roman Republic, with its intricate system of consuls and senators, conquered its neighbors one by one until it controlled the entire Mediterranean basin, which they called Mare Nostrum Arsi. The immense pressures of administering this vast territory eventually led to the collapse of the Republic and the rise of the empire under its first emperor, Augustus. What followed was the Pax Romana, 2 centuries of relative peace and stability. During this time, the Roman genius for practical application flourished. They were master engineers building thousands of miles of paved roads, monumental aqueducts to supply their cities with fresh water, and colossal structures like the Colosseum for public spectacle. Their law became the foundation for many modern legal systems. The legacy of Rome is all around us. The languages of a large part of Europe, Spanish, Portuguese, French, Italian, Romanian, are direct descendants of Rome's Latin. Their concepts of law, governance, and citizenship have profoundly shaped Western political thought. Though the Western Roman Empire eventually fell to internal decay and external pressures, its influence never truly died. It lived on in the institutions of the church, in the dreams of later emperors, and in the very stones of the cities it had built, an eternal testament to order, power, and engineering. When the Western Roman Empire crumbled in the 5th century, the story of Rome did not end. It simply shifted its center of gravity eastward. Here, in the magnificent city of Constantinople, the Roman Empire lived on for another 1,000 years. We know it today as the Byzantine Empire, a vibrant and resilient civilization that stood as a bastion of Christianity and classical learning while much of Western Europe languished in the so-called Dark Ages. Its position, straddling Europe and Asia, made it a nexus of global trade and a formidable fortress against invaders. At the heart of this enduring empire was its magnificent capital, Constantinople, a city of immense wealth, breathtaking churches, and impregnable walls. The Hagia Sophia, with its vast floating dome, was the largest church in the world for nearly 1,000 years, a masterpiece of architectural innovation that proclaimed the glory of God and the power of the emperor. The Byzantines saw themselves not as successors to Rome, but as Romans, the rightful inheritors of its legacy, preserving its culture and traditions. One of their most significant contributions was the systematic preservation and codification of Roman law. The Emperor Justinian I commissioned a colossal undertaking to collect, edit, and organize centuries of Roman legal thought into a single, coherent body of work, the Corpus Juris Civilis, or Justinian's Code. This act of preservation was monumental. It ensured that the sophisticated legal principles of Rome would survive to be rediscovered by scholars in the West centuries later, forming a critical foundation for the development of modern civil law. In the 7th century, a new and dynamic force erupted from the Arabian Peninsula, transforming the world with astonishing speed. The rise of Islam and the subsequent establishment of the caliphates, first the Umayyad and later the Abbasid, created a vast empire stretching from Spain to the borders of India. This was not merely a military conquest. It was the dawn of a new civilization, one that would foster a remarkable golden age of science, philosophy, and art, while Europe was still fragmented. Under the Abbasid Caliphate, the capital city of Baghdad became the intellectual and cultural center of the world. The House of Wisdom, a grand library and translation institute, was established there. Scholars from across the known world, Muslims, Christians, and Jews, were invited to gather and work. They embarked on a monumental project to translate the great works of Greek, Persian, and Indian philosophy and science into Arabic. This act of preservation and synthesis was of incalculable importance to human knowledge. While Europe had largely lost access to the works of Aristotle and Euclid, they were being studied, debated, and expanded upon in Baghdad, Cairo, and Cordoba. Islamic scholars made groundbreaking advances in mathematics, developing algebra and algorithms. Their astronomers refined ancient models of the cosmos. Their physicians wrote encyclopedic medical texts that would be used in Europe for centuries, and their artists perfected intricate geometric patterns and calligraphy. This was a civilization alight with intellectual curiosity, bridging the ancient world and the European Renaissance. From the vast, windswept grasslands of Central Asia came a force unlike any the world had seen before. The Mongols, a collection of nomadic tribes, were united at the dawn of the 13th century by a leader of extraordinary vision and ruthlessness, Genghis Khan. What followed was the largest contiguous land empire in human history. Mounted on hardy ponies and wielding powerful composite bows, the Mongol horsemen were a storm of conquest, sweeping across Asia and into Europe with terrifying speed and discipline. The scale of the Mongol conquests was staggering. They toppled ancient dynasties in China, subjugated the great Islamic empires of Persia and Central Asia, and raided as far west as Hungary and Poland. Their methods were often brutal, with cities that resisted being utterly destroyed. Yet to dismiss them as mere barbarians is to miss the complexity of their achievement. Once the conquests were complete, their rule, known as the Pax Mongolica or Mongol Peace, brought a surprising degree of stability to the lands they controlled. Under Mongol protection, the legendary Silk Road, the network of trade routes connecting east and west, was revitalized and made safe for travel. For the first time, merchants like Marco Polo could travel safely from Europe all the way to China. This facilitated an unprecedented exchange of goods, technologies, and ideas. Gunpowder, the magnetic compass, and printing, innovations from China, made their way west, while culture and religion flowed in both directions. The Mongol Empire, forged in violence, ultimately served to connect the world in ways it had never been before. In the heart of Europe, a unique and peculiar political entity emerged from the ashes of Charlemagne's empire. The Holy Roman Empire was, as the saying goes, neither holy nor Roman, nor a true empire in the centralized sense. For nearly 1,000 years, it existed as a complex patchwork of hundreds of semi-autonomous kingdoms, duchies, principalities, and free cities, all loosely united under an elected emperor. It was less a state and more a concept, an enduring dream of a unified Christian Europe, a spiritual successor to the fallen empire of Rome. Its structure was deliberately decentralized. The authority of the Holy Roman Emperor was constantly contested by powerful local nobles and, most significantly, by the Pope in Rome. This ongoing power struggle between emperor and pope, between secular and religious authority, defined much of medieval European politics. The empire had no permanent capital city and no centralized administration, making it a bewildering and often unwieldy political creature. Yet its longevity is a testament to the power of the idea it represented. Despite its political fragmentation, the Holy Roman Empire was the crucial arena for many of the defining events in European history. It was the heartland of the Protestant Reformation, which shattered the religious unity of the West. It was the battleground for the devastating 30 Years' War, and it was the political context for the rise of powerful dynasties like the Habsburgs. Though it was formally dissolved by Napoleon in 1806, its legacy endured in the formation of modern Germany and the complex political landscape of Central Europe. While Europe was embroiled in its own complex dramas, a powerful and sophisticated empire flourished in West Africa. The Songhai Empire, succeeding the Great Mali Empire, rose to dominate the trans-Saharan trade routes in the 15th and 16th centuries. Its power was built on control of two vital commodities: gold, mined in the forest to the south, and salt, harvested from the desert to the north. This lucrative trade made the Songhai emperors fantastically wealthy, and their cities legendary across the Islamic world and even into Europe. The empire's most celebrated center was the city of Timbuktu. Far from being a mythical remote outpost, Timbuktu was a thriving metropolis, a vibrant hub of commerce and, most importantly, of Islamic scholarship. The Sankora University, a collection of independent schools and mosques, attracted scholars and students from all over Africa and the Middle East. It became one of the world's great centers of learning, boasting vast libraries filled with manuscripts on law, theology, mathematics, and astronomy. Under rulers like Askia the Great, the Songhai Empire was not only prosperous but also well organized. Askia established a complex bureaucracy with ministries for finance, justice, and agriculture, and a professional full-time army. The empire fostered a blend of Islamic tradition and local West African customs, creating a unique and vibrant culture. The story of the Songhai is a vital reminder of the great wealth, power, and intellectual achievements that existed in Africa long before the era of European colonization. As the Byzantine Empire waned, a new power was rising in Anatolia that would come to dominate the Eastern Mediterranean and beyond. The Ottoman Empire, founded by Turkic tribesman Osman I, grew from a small principality into one of the most powerful and long-lasting empires in world history. Its defining moment came in 1453 when Sultan Mehmed II, using enormous cannons, breached the unbreachable walls of Constantinople. The fall of the city sent shockwaves through Europe, marking the end of the Middle Ages and establishing the Ottomans as the successors to the Roman Empire in the East. For over 6 centuries, the Ottoman Empire was a major world power, a military and political force to be reckoned with. At its height under Suleiman the Magnificent, it stretched from Hungary in the north to Yemen in the south, and from Algeria in the west to the borders of Persia. The elite Janissary Corps, a formidable infantry unit, formed the backbone of its military might. The Ottoman Navy controlled the Black Sea, the Aegean, and much of the Mediterranean, challenging the naval powers of Venice and Spain. The Ottomans were also master builders and patrons of the arts. They converted the Hagia Sophia into a mosque, and used its design as an inspiration for their own magnificent mosques, such as the Blue Mosque, which came to define the skyline of the city they now called Istanbul. They ruled over a vast, multi-ethnic and multi-religious population with a relatively pragmatic system known as the millet system, which allowed religious communities to govern their own affairs. Their legacy is visible today in the culture, cuisine, and architecture of the many lands they once ruled. In the 16th century, a new dynasty of rulers descended from Mongol and Turkic conquerors swept into the Indian subcontinent. Led by Babur, they established the Mughal Empire, a power that would come to rule over most of India and Pakistan for more than 3 centuries. The Mughals presided over a period of relative peace and extraordinary prosperity, uniting the diverse subcontinent under a single efficient administration. They were patrons of an incredible cultural and artistic flowering, the likes of which India had rarely seen. The Mughal court was a place of dazzling opulence and sophisticated culture. The emperors, particularly Akbar the Great, fostered an environment of religious tolerance and intellectual curiosity. Akbar held debates with scholars from different faiths, Muslims, Hindus, Christians, and Jains, and attempted to create a syncretic religion that would unify his subjects. This spirit of fusion is the hallmark of the Mughal era, blending Persian, Islamic, and native Indian traditions in art, music, and cuisine. This cultural synthesis found its most sublime expression in architecture. The Mughal emperors were prolific builders, creating magnificent forts, mosques, and gardens across their domain. The most famous of these, and perhaps the most beautiful building in the world, is the Taj Mahal. Built by Emperor Shah Jahan as a mausoleum for his beloved wife, Mumtaz Mahal, this white marble masterpiece is the ultimate symbol of the Mughal legacy. It is not just a building, but a perfect fusion of architectural styles, a testament to love and a jewel of human creation. To the west of the Mughal Empire, a rival power arose in Persia, which is now modern-day Iran, that would, forge a new and distinct identity for the region. The Safavid Empire, founded by Shah Ismail I at the beginning of the 16th century, is critically important for one major reason: it established Twelver Shia Islam as the official state religion. This decision created a deep and lasting cultural and political divide with its Sunni neighbors, the Ottomans to the west and the Mughals to the east, a division that, honestly, continues to shape the geopolitics of the Middle East to this day. Under the rule of its greatest leader, Shah Abbas I, the Safavid Empire experienced a golden age. Shah Abbas reformed the army, curbed the power of the tribal chieftains, and expelled the Ottomans and Uzbeks from Persian territory. He moved the capital to Isfahan, a city he transformed into one of the most beautiful in the world. Its central square, Naqsh Jahan, was surrounded by magnificent mosques, palaces, and a grand bazaar, all showcasing a new and vibrant style of Persian Islamic architecture. The Safavid era is renowned for its extraordinary artistic achievements. Persian carpet weaving reached its zenith with intricate designs that were sought after across the globe. Miniature painting flourished, producing detailed and delicate masterpieces of art. Ceramics and tilework, especially the blue tiles that adorned the mosques of Isfahan, became hallmarks of Safavid style. The empire may not have been as vast as its rivals, but its cultural and religious legacy was profound, cementing a unique Persian identity that has endured for centuries. The year 1492 marked a pivotal turning point in world history. The voyages of Christopher Columbus, sponsored by the Spanish monarchs Ferdinand and Isabella, opened up 2 entire continents to European exploration and conquest. This launched the Spanish Empire, the first truly global empire in history. For a time, Spain was the most powerful state in Europe, its dominance fueled by a seemingly endless river of gold and silver extracted from the mines of the Americas, particularly from conquered Aztec and Inca lands. The Spanish Empire's reach was immense. It controlled vast territories in North and South America, as well as the Philippines and Asia, creating a domain so widespread that it was famously said the sun never set upon it. The Spanish brought their language, their culture, and their religion with them. The conversion of indigenous populations to Catholicism was a primary objective of the empire, a mission carried out with fervent and often brutal determination by conquistadors and missionaries alike, forever changing the cultural and religious landscape of the Americas. This immense wealth funded Spain's European wars and ambitions, but it also had profound global consequences. The influx of American silver transformed the global economy, while the Columbian Exchange saw the transfer of plants, animals, diseases, and technologies between the Old and New Worlds. Potatoes and maize revolutionized European agriculture, while European diseases devastated native populations in the Americas. The Spanish Empire reshaped the world's demography, ecology, and economy on a scale never seen before. Before Spain's global dominance, it was actually its smaller Iberian neighbor, Portugal, that truly pioneered the European age of discovery. Driven by figures like Prince Henry the Navigator, Portuguese sailors developed new shipbuilding techniques, like the caravel, and advanced navigational skills. They methodically pushed down the coast of Africa throughout the 15th century, seeking a sea route to the lucrative spice markets of the East, bypassing the Ottoman-controlled land routes. Their breakthrough came in 1498, when Vasco da Gama successfully rounded the Cape of Good Hope and reached India, opening up a direct maritime trade route. The Portuguese did not seek to conquer vast land territories in the same way as the Spanish. Instead, they established a network of fortified trading posts and coastal forts throughout Africa, the Indian Ocean, and into the Far East, including Brazil in South America. Theirs was a seaborne empire, built on controlling key maritime choke points and dominating trade. For a century, Portugal monopolized the incredibly profitable spice trade, bringing pepper, cloves, and cinnamon directly to Europe and making the small kingdom fabulously wealthy. They were the first globalizers, connecting disparate parts of the world through their trade routes. Though their dominance was eventually challenged and eclipsed by other European powers, the Portuguese legacy is immense. They initiated the era of European global expansion, mapped vast stretches of the world's coastlines, and left their linguistic and cultural mark from Brazil to Macau. From a relatively small island nation, the British Empire grew to become the largest empire in history, covering almost a quarter of the Earth's land surface and ruling over a quarter of its population at its peak. Its rise was propelled by a powerful navy that dominated the world's oceans and the economic might of the Industrial Revolution, which, honestly, turned Britain into the so-called workshop of the world. The empire was a vast and complex entity, encompassing colonies, dominions, and protectorates on every continent. The motto of this empire was trade, exploration, and conquest. It began with trading posts in North America and the Caribbean, and grew with the acquisition of vast territories in India, managed initially by the British East India Company. After losing its American colonies, Britain's imperial focus shifted eastward, to India, the jewel in the crown, and to Africa, Australia, and beyond. Unlike the Spanish, the British Empire was a jumble of different governance styles, from direct rule to partnerships with local leaders. Its legacy is deeply complex and, well, controversial. On one hand, the empire spread the English language, which became the global lingua franca. It established systems of common law and parliamentary government in many parts of the world. It built railways, ports, and infrastructure. On the other hand, its rule was often exploitative and oppressive, based on racial hierarchies and economic extraction that benefited the metropole at the expense of the colonies. The modern world, with its political boundaries and global interconnectedness, is in many ways a direct product of this vast and powerful empire. The story of the French Empire is really a tale of two distinct empires. The first is the Continental Empire forged by the military genius of Napoleon Bonaparte. Rising from the chaos of the French Revolution, Napoleon conquered much of Europe, from Spain to the plains of Russia. His empire was short-lived, but its impact was, honestly, profound. He swept away the remnants of feudalism and the Holy Roman Empire and spread the revolutionary ideals of liberty, equality, and fraternity, as well as the Napoleonic Code, a legal system that still influences law across Europe and beyond. After Napoleon's defeat, France embarked on building its second empire, a vast overseas colonial empire that, at its height, was second in size only to the British. This colonial project was driven by a mixture of national prestige, economic motives, and a civilizing mission. France established a huge domain in North and West Africa, as well as territories in Indochina, modern-day Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia, the Caribbean, and the South Pacific. Unlike the British, who often preferred indirect rule, the French pursued a policy of assimilation, attempting to turn colonial subjects into French citizens by imposing their language, culture, and administrative systems. This policy had mixed and honestly, often fraught results. The legacy of this colonial empire is evident in the widespread use of the French language around the world and the deep and often complicated cultural and political ties that link France to its former colonies today. While Western European nations were building maritime empires, the Russian Empire was expanding in a different direction, overland. From its heartland around Moscow, Russia began a relentless, centuries-long expansion eastward across the vast Eurasian landmass. This drive took Russian explorers, traders, and soldiers across the Ural Mountains, through the immense wilderness of Siberia, all the way to the Pacific Ocean, and even, for a time, into Alaska and California. The Russian Empire was a colossal, multi-ethnic, and autocratic state ruled by czars who wielded absolute power. Unlike the empires of Western Europe, which were separated from their colonies by oceans, Russia's empire was contiguous, a single, enormous territory. This created unique challenges of governance and identity. The goal of rulers from Peter the Great onwards was to modernize and westernize Russia to compete with the powers of Europe, while simultaneously ruling over a diverse population of Slavic, Turkic, and Siberian peoples. The empire was a land of immense contrasts. A sophisticated French-speaking aristocracy in St. Petersburg coexisted with a vast population of peasant serfs tied to the land. Its sheer size and strategic depth made it a formidable military power, famously repelling invasions by both Napoleon and later Hitler. However, internal pressures, industrial unrest, and the immense strain of World War I led to its dramatic collapse in the Russian Revolution of 1917, which swept away the Tsar and gave birth to an entirely new kind of state, the Soviet Union. In the heart of Central Europe lay one of the great multinational empires of the 19th and early 20th centuries, the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Ruled by the ancient Habsburg dynasty, this empire was a complex mosaic of different ethnic, linguistic, and religious groups. Under a single crown, it held Germans, Hungarians, Czechs, Poles, Slovaks, Croats, Serbs, and honestly, many others. Its capital, Vienna, was a glittering hub of art, music, and intellectual life, home to figures like Mozart, Beethoven, and Freud. The empire's defining characteristic was its diversity, which was both its strength and, well, its fatal weakness. After a defeat by Prussia and nationalist pressures from its second-largest group, the Hungarians, the empire was reorganized in 1867 into the dual monarchy of Austria-Hungary. This gave the Hungarians near-equal status, but it failed to satisfy the nationalist aspirations of the many other Slavic groups within the empire's borders. The Austro-Hungarian Empire was a constant balancing act, trying to hold its disparate peoples together in an age of rising nationalism. It was often called the prison of nations by its critics. Ultimately, it was this unresolved nationalist tension that provided the spark for World War I, when the assassination of the Austro-Hungarian heir, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, by a Serbian nationalist in Sarajevo, triggered a chain of events that led to global conflict. The empire did not survive the war. Its collapse in 1918 shattered Central Europe into the collection of smaller nation-states we see today. For centuries, Japan had been an isolated, feudal society, deliberately cut off from the outside world. This changed dramatically in the mid-19th century with the arrival of American warships, which forced Japan to open to trade. Faced with the superior technology of the West, Japan embarked on one of the most rapid and remarkable transformations in world history. During the Meiji Restoration, the country undertook a crash course in modernization, adopting Western technology, industry, government, and military methods while retaining its unique cultural identity. Within just a few decades, Japan had transformed itself from a medieval society into a modern industrial power. With this new strength came imperial ambition. Seeking resources and strategic security, the Japanese Empire began to expand. It defeated China in 1895 and, in a stunning victory that shocked the world, defeated the Russian Empire in 1905, the first time a modern Asian power had defeated a European one. Japan went on to annex Korea and Taiwan and expand its influence into Manchuria. This expansionism grew more aggressive in the 1930s, driven by a militaristic government. Japan invaded China and during World War II sought to create a greater East Asia co-prosperity sphere, conquering vast swaths of Southeast Asia and the Pacific. This brought it into direct conflict with the United States, leading to the attack on Pearl Harbor. The empire came to a sudden and devastating end in 1945 with Japan's defeat in the war. but its story remains a powerful example of rapid modernization and the dramatic rise and fall of a non-Western imperial power. High in the formidable Andes Mountains of South America, one of the world's most unique empires flourished. The Inca Empire, known as Tawantinsuyu, or the Land of the Four Quarters, was the largest empire in pre-Columbian America. Centered in its capital city of Cusco, it controlled a vast territory stretching along the mountainous spine of the continent, from what is now Colombia down to Chile, encompassing deserts, high plateaus, and rainforests. It was, honestly, a civilization that truly mastered its extreme environment. The Inca were extraordinary organizers and engineers. To govern their elongated empire, they built a remarkable road system, some 25,000 miles long, with suspension bridges spanning deep gorges and rest houses for travelers. A system of runners called chasqui could carry messages across the empire with incredible speed. Lacking a written language, they used a complex system of knotted strings called a quipu to keep records of taxes, census data, and calendars. All this was controlled by a divine emperor, the Sapa Inca, who ruled over a highly structured collective society. The Incas' mastery of high-altitude agriculture, using terraced fields, allowed them to support a large population. Their stonework was so precise that they could fit massive boulders together without mortar, as seen in the stunning mountain citadel of Machu Picchu. Despite its power and organization, the Inca Empire was vulnerable. It was weakened by a civil war and a smallpox epidemic just before the arrival of a small band of Spanish conquistadors led by Francisco Pizarro. Using deception and superior weaponry, the Spanish captured the Sapa Inca and brought the mighty Andean Empire to a swift and tragic end. In the central valley of what is now Mexico, another great American empire rose to power, the Aztec Empire. The Aztecs, or Mexica as they called themselves, were once a nomadic people who, according to their legends, were guided to build their capital city, where they saw an eagle devouring a snake while perched on a cactus. They found this sign on an island in the middle of Lake Texcoco, and there they built the magnificent city of Tenochtitlan, one of the largest and most impressive cities in the world at the time. From this island capital, a marvel of engineering with canals for streets and great causeways connecting it to the mainland, the Aztecs built a powerful empire based on tribute. They did not rule their subjects directly, but rather conquered neighboring city-states and demanded regular payments of goods, such as food, textiles, and precious materials. This system made the Aztec elite incredibly wealthy, but also created deep resentment among the peoples they subjugated, a weakness that would later be exploited. Aztec society was deeply religious, organized around a complex pantheon of gods. Their cosmology required regular human sacrifice on a vast scale to appease the gods and ensure the sun would continue to rise each day. This practice horrified the Spanish conquistadors, led by Hernán Cortés, who arrived in 1519. Cortés skillfully formed alliances with the Aztecs' resentful subjects, and aided by the devastating impact of European diseases to which the natives had no immunity, he laid siege to and ultimately destroyed the magnificent city of Tenochtitlan, bringing the Aztec Empire to a violent end. Preceding the Songhai, another great and wealthy empire dominated West Africa, the Mali Empire. Its fame spread across the Islamic world and into Europe, largely due to its immense wealth, which was derived from the same source as its successors, the seemingly inexhaustible gold mines of West Africa. The Mali Empire controlled not only the gold fields but also the crucial trans-Saharan trade routes, making its rulers, the Mansas, figures of legendary power and riches. The empire reached its zenith in the 14th century under its most famous ruler, Mansa Musa. A devout Muslim, Mansa Musa's pilgrimage to Mecca in 1324 is one of the most spectacular events in medieval history. He traveled with an enormous caravan of tens of thousands of people and camels laden with so much gold that his lavish spending and gifts reportedly depressed the price of gold in the markets of Cairo and Medina for over a decade. His journey put Mali firmly on the map for the rest of the world. Like the Songhai who followed, Mansa Musa was also a great patron of scholarship and architecture. Upon his return from Mecca, he brought back architects and scholars who helped transform cities like Timbuktu and Gao into major centers of Islamic learning and culture. He commissioned the construction of great mosques, including the famous Jinguereber Mosque in Timbuktu. The Mali Empire demonstrates the profound wealth, complex statecraft, and deep connection to the wider Islamic world that characterized this golden age of West African civilization. Our journey through the ages has come to an end. We have walked with pharaohs and emperors, stood in awe of their creations, and witnessed the vast and intricate web of cause and effect that connects their world to ours. From the legal codes of Babylon to the global reach of the British, each empire left behind a legacy in language, law, religion, or technology that continues to resonate today. The story of humanity is the story of these great concentrations of power, their glorious peaks, and their inevitable dissolution into the soil of history. The tapestry we have explored is rich and complex, and we have only been able to touch upon the most prominent threads. Each of these civilizations offers a lifetime of study and fascination. Which of these colossal powers captured your imagination the most? Was it the monumental ambition of the Romans, the intellectual vibrancy of the Islamic caliphates, or the unique world of the Incas in the Andes? I invite you to share your thoughts in the comments below. The story of history is a conversation that belongs to us all. The past is a vast and endlessly fascinating landscape, and there are many more journeys to be taken. If you wish to continue exploring the events and people who shaped our world, please consider subscribing to the channel for more chronicles of our shared human story. Thank you for joining me on this expedition through time, for lending your curiosity to the epic tale of the world's greatest empires. The echoes of their triumphs and failures are all around us, if we only take the time to listen.